I didn't do the high.
So you have to do the bye? Hi! So we're gonna do another lunch with Della today, and we're gonna talk about something that has been on the minds of many fellow Singaporeans, especially I would say close to 3 of our hearts, because we're all ex-athletes. Liu and I played for school for many years, and Terence was an ex-national swimmer. So I think we all feel extra strongly about this topic coming from a sports background. So in case you've been under a rock, recently Ben Davies was offered a 2-year contract with Fulham, which is a huge deal, and he is unable to accept it unless he is allowed to defer his national service. I don't think just to sports people, but to people in general, be like, what a great opportunity. Unfortunately, MINDEF has other things to say, so let me just tell you, MINDEF has basically said no, we cannot make this exception to defer. So basically they say that they want to make a good balance, and this was also stated by the Senior Minister of State for Defence, Heng Chi Hao. He said, for a country like Singapore, we want to value every Singaporean and we want to develop our talent, of course, but at the same time we must also remember that the purpose for all this development is that we have a country, and that all of us actually have a duty to one another and this country. I can feel a lot of like angst on my left and right, so I'm gonna just state that out there, and then what do you guys think?
Okay, firstly on NS, I've often struggled because when I hear the word NS, I think about national service.
Yeah.
And then when I think about national service, I think about service to the nation.
Yeah.
And for me, nowhere in those words is it specifically defined that has to be done via a military service. And so I often get confused how the two get intertwined, because national service is national service.
It's just serving the country.
And military service should be a subset of that national service.
Actually, that's true. National service is an umbrella. Okay, let's go into like your situation when you were serving your NS or national service. As at that time you were still swimming for Singapore?
No, so basically my story is I deferred my national service to after my university.
Okay, and that's because you wanted to continue swimming?
Yes, and I wanted to finish my education first before I served the army. I didn't want to have the 2-year break.
And so you deferred with no problems?
Well, it was obviously with conditions, right? And at that point in time, I don't know if it's still the case, that firstly you have to put a bond up, right? And some sum of money. If you don't have the money, you have to basically mortgage your home.
Yeah, what happens?
Tie your home to it.
What happens if you don't have the money? Then so basically, if you were a poor kid, right, and your parents are struggling, like living from hand to mouth, and they don't have this sum of money to lend you as to put for your upfront bond, then how?
Well, frankly, I don't know the specifics or the technical requirements. I know that it's amount of money that's tied and varies according to your family's income as well.
Okay.
For what I remember and understood, this is obviously more than a decade ago, so I may not be remembering it correctly. There's also a defined period of which you have to graduate and come back. Okay. And I recall that was a 4.5-year period.
So the bond is to make sure you don't defer and then just not come back?
Yes, correct, correct. Okay. So there's a 4.5 year. If you're not done with your school, university in that period, you have to come back first, serve the army, and then you can go back and finish it. Okay. The other requirement I recall was that I had to begin my university before I turned 17 and a half, which meant that I left Singapore when I was 16 and then had to finish it within 4.5 years. Basically.
And was that ideal for you?
For me, I can't complain much because the fact that I managed to get the deferment, I think, benefited me in a lot of ways.
So what's the problem now with Ben Davies? Why is he not getting deferred? Is it because he's over 17 and a half?
No, I think from what I understand and reading it is because MINDEF grants deferment based on a defined criteria, and a lot of it has to do with direct visible contribution to the country. So for example, that you would have represented Singapore in international meets, or you have the potential to win a medal at an international meet. So for example, Joseph Schooling and Zheng Wen and I think another national sailor were the 3 that they said have been granted that long-term deferment. Right? It's not, so apparently there are 2 types of deferment. Or
so what you had was just a normal deferment?
Yes, it's just a short-term deferment for studies. But theirs is a long-term deferment, which I think means that there isn't a defined period set that you have to come back and serve, which is just, it's an open-ended deferment. So I think the issue is because they see it as him pursuing a professional and personal pursuit, playing for Fulham, and so there is no direct contribution to the country.
I mean, definitely, like what I'm reading is that they, it's been quoted that it's a professional pursuit. I'll read you a quote in a bit, but Liu Ying, let's hear what do you think
about the Ben Davies thing?
Yes, about this entire thing.
Okay, coming from a sports person, right? I feel like it's a bit sayang, like you have this boy who is so talented that our internationally known team wants to sign him on to train him and then to invest in him, and then it's a bit, can I say cock block?
Yeah, you can say cock block.
Yeah, I've been playing table tennis since I was primary school, and then all the way even in poly and all that, and I really understand how sports people can be super passionate about doing their sport, and all the effort, the sweat, the tears that goes into it, and to have something cock block you from to move on to your next stage. I believe a lot of sports players in Singapore, right? One of the dreams, or at least for me, when I was young, I always dreamt to be an Olympian.
Yeah.
To represent Singapore in Olympics for a table tennis competition. And it's hard to get there because first of all, we don't get special treatment. So if your family is well to do, maybe your parents will be more supportive. Then
you can afford extra
trainings.
Yeah,
you can afford extra trainings, you can get a better coach. My parents were not poor, they okay but because the emphasis wasn't on sports, and I had to find ways to go about doing it, be a bit more resourceful, although it's a slower way. So what really affected me when I was going through this process was that there were schools that they would have foreign players come into their team, and immediately they will be number one. Because their country already provided that kind of resource for them to train to become the next gold medal. If we were so-called given the equal opportunity, and I'm a girl, if I were born like a guy and then I have to go through NS, that's 2 years of break.
If you play sports, you will understand that it does affect everything, and it's not that easy to get it back. I'm going to read something written by another person, Bilahari. He put a very controversial post out that I think is gonna be quite polarizing. And so he put out on Facebook, he said, "What I'm gonna say will probably infuriate many, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is an opportunity for the boy, but it is a professional or work opportunity. No different in principle from, say, an opportunity to study or work overseas, which many other male Singaporeans have had to defer to serve NS before taking up. The only difference is that this concerns professional football rather than, say, studying or working in some field like accounting that does not arouse strong passion." So he's urging everyone to think carefully. How different is this in principle? It is not as if deferment is to enable him to serve the country in a different capacity. If he is allowed to defer NS, what grounds can others in the same not-football situation be denied deferment? So I think what Bilahari is trying to say basically, right, is that let's not set a precedence. Let's not have a situation where there's going to be a slippery slope, right? So let's say you are offered a job in a really high-flying law firm, right? And it's an American law firm, and you need to move to the US for 3 years. What difference is that? He's just trying to say that this is not a way of national service.
There are many things that frustrates me about the whole situation. I can go more into details later, but I think the one thing that frustrates me with this is I don't know this person well enough, but it doesn't sound like it's coming from an ex-athlete or someone who knows about sports a lot.
Yeah.
Because when you start comparing a sporting career to
accountancy,
okay,
where there is no time limit.
Yes, and we all know that even within or amongst different sports, there's different timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so she played table tennis, I played netball, you're an ex-swimmer. I agree, every sport has a different timeline.
Yeah.
But we all know that for sports, youth, you cannot beat the reflexes, and just the condition of a young body versus someone who's slightly older, which compared to like say accountancy, right, your brain is going to be the same, in fact probably more developed as you get older, right? So I agree, Bilahari has no idea. Coming from a non-sports background, you cannot compare sports people against like non-sports people. It's different, right? That's why there's a time.
Yeah, exactly that. And so while I understand where he's going with this, I just think first and foremost that I wish for someone who seemingly seems to be established and decorated as he is, would have put a bit more thought or done a bit more work to actually understand what are you actually writing, right? And sometimes I'm not sure if you just want to put that out because you want to seem like you're on someone's side, or you feel like as an ex-diplomat it's your job to just blindly support the so-called national stance here. Which is the same thing that frustrates me about everything about this. Is the whole process and the way the decision has been made is very so Singaporean, if I can say that.
Okay, I actually find that a bit offensive. Like perhaps my patriotism is very high, but I find it offensive to put it that way. But I get what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is, as a country, we've always, been very fond of our systems. There are rules and there are boxes and there are systems. And should you want to do something, if you can't fit in this box, you gotta fit in this box. Right? So the problem for Ben Davis now is that he hasn't been able to fit into either box. Right? So that's why he's not getting the deferment of say like Zhongwan or schooling, right?
Correct. And so the one thing I posted on my Facebook, of course, which is also probably only like 11 people read it or something.
Okay, I share.
Okay, fine, whatever. No, but I think the one thing that came up and the thing I posted after I read the initial statement actually by Mindev and not even by others, I said, look, for me, I feel like whenever there is a grey area or when things are not so black and white, it's actually when an opportunity arises rather than an issue. And when I say the Singaporean way is that I feel that we've been brought up and not many of us think about it that way, because this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for someone to make a stance and take a call. We're saying with someone with vision and foresight to say, okay, look, I know black and white, there is no reason for us to grant the deferment. I know there is no direct impact to nation building or the country because playing for Fulham in the EPL is not the Olympics. But I'm going to have the vision and foresight and really a pair of balls to really say that no, I actually believe that there's going to be a lot of positive impact for the country. And I tell you, as an ex-man, that's why I don't think he is as an athlete, and maybe I'm wrong, but
I'm pretty sure he's not an athlete.
As an ex-swimmer,
no ex-athlete or no athlete would say something like this, knowing that there is a very short runway as athletes where you are at your peak. That's a fact.
And I'm in the finance or ex-finance industry, and even I wouldn't compare it. I've been in both, sort of. Right? I wouldn't compare the two. Now, back to my point is, when schooling won the Olympic gold medal, as an ex-national swimmer, right, the amount of pride and joy I felt, and also seeing with the young kids, with my nieces, and the change of interest, and all of a sudden, she became very interested in swimming. Right? And she changed her whole attitude. She was a lot more hardworking, a lot more, and she idolizes schooling. And those are things you can't measure. Those
so
are things that are not
basically,
important.
I mean, you see, right? So like Ben Davis, if he, let's say he was granted deferment and he goes on to play for Fulham, that would be like a vision for some young kid, some young football player in Singapore who's like, oh, Singapore football is not that great. But he sees Ben Davis, he's like, there are things to aspire to. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and also it's bigger than that. It's the fact that he is breaking boundaries, right? He is breaking boundaries, whereas we are setting the boundaries. And that's what frustrates me, because as a small nation, a small country, maybe this has worked for the last 50 over years of our independence, right? But given how the world has evolved and there's so much changes, like we can't just sit here today and say, well, this is how we've been doing our things, and this is what's going to be our recipe for success going forward. We've got to change our approach and mindset.
The fact of the matter is, it worked for the past 50 years because we've spent so much time investing in our people, and we're a very educated lot, right? But then the fact is, the whole world is very educated right now, so we've lost our edge. And
I just feel like this is a unique situation that requires a unique process. if I project myself as whoever it is there making the decision, perhaps the concern was around, if we make this decision and we grant the deferment, it's a slippery slope.
We have to grant to everyone.
Yes, because all the gentlemen who serve NS will be pissed off with us. Every Singaporean will be annoyed because we made so-called an exception for this person who's not going to the Olympics. The irony is the exact opposite has happened, where the public and the ground sentiment is everyone's against the idea, and the irony is I think the government or MINDEF was trying to make the decision for the public. But they ended up making a decision that was against what public wanted. But it's also a bit ironic because after France won the World Cup just earlier this week, we had our minister Daman coming out with a long Facebook post talking about how he adored the French footballing system, etc., etc., etc. And then you have sort of the backdrop, this whole issue about, is he sending a subtle message to MINDEF to say perhaps you need to be a bit more open-minded, but he doesn't feel he's able to come outright to say that to them? Or is he completely just in his own world, right? I would like to think it's the former, but I really don't know the answer.
Then I think what we're talking about here, it feels like this whole discussion has gotten way bigger than Mendev is.
No, I think because we are focusing on the sports aspect, and a lot of people are like, well, like you give special treatment for sports players, right? I mean, like in school, then like sports people are like the jocks or like the popular kid, stuff like that. So all the way even until NS, they also get special treatment. So I think definitely there is sentiments like that. But we're not just. I don't think it's like solely a sports achievement kind of issue. Even with like our arts, like there's a lot of talent in Singapore that has yet to grow, and it's not even about like serving NS per se, right? It's more about like whether having the support and the right environment for all this to flourish and to like help Singapore, to do Singapore proud basically. Isn't that like a form of national service anyway?
The one thing I would say though is, the reason why I'm a bit disappointed is because I think the government has managed to adopt that growth mindset in other areas, right? So they've done very well in many areas, and we wouldn't be where we are today as a nation, as a country, if a lot of our ministers, present and past, had taken a bold stand where it was maybe an unpopular decision or something that nobody could see, but they had the vision to do it. All I'm just saying is, can we use that ability for this as well, or other things, right? It doesn't just have to be in certain areas, and then other areas we tend to be the complete opposite, which is something that I really don't understand, right? And so I think we have the ability, we meaning our government has the ability to have the vision and the foresight to make these calls. And they're trying to do it, progresses as a nation with all the Smart Nation initiatives, trying to cultivate a lot of startup culture. And I think they've done a great job having been sort of directly involved with some of these initiatives and talking to the companies. Now, obviously, people will have certain things that can be improved, but in general, the effort has been amazing, right? So all I want as a Singapore citizen is that we think about other areas where we can apply the same success mindset and really help these individuals, because I really feel like someone like this sort of going to the EPL and playing for the first time
would be such a
it's like hairy.
I'm not even a football player, and I feel it like if it were the netball equivalent, I'm sure you feel it like the table tennis equivalent, like just as a sports person, like you say, it will be someone to aspire to. It will be like the next Joseph Schooling. Well, we have a lot to talk about this, but I mean, like, okay, let us know what you think. If you think that we need a more of a growth mindset, of kind of like a more open boundary kind of discussion, if you think that that's what we need more of in this country, let us know below your thoughts on this entire discussion. If you feel the opposite and you feel like MINDEF doing it this way is fair, also let us know. It'll be good to hear a different view. We will be back. We'll talk about a lot more. I think we have quite a lot to say in this area. If you want us to talk about more stuff that's tinged with a bit of politics, also let us know down below. Otherwise, we'll catch up with you soon. See ya. Bye.
Bye. I didn't do the hi.
So you have to do the bye?